Today we're going to be looking at one of the most famous prints of all time by a Japanese artist named Hokusai. And they believe that he made it around 1830, and it was actually part of a larger series. So the name, The Great Wave, actually wasn't the original name. It's just part of a series of over 36 views of Mount Fuji. So the name The Great Wave makes you think it's about this wave, but if you look in the background, you'll see Mount Fuji, and that is actually supposed to be the subject matter of this print.
So it turns out it's not really a print of a wave at all.
You have this ginormous wave that's kind of sweeping across the page and kind of drawing your eye back to the tip of Mount Fuji.
It's sort of like a spiral that wraps around and around and around.
So my eye, I know, starts kind of on that right side and sweeps across the page, and you have this, it almost looks like a giant hand, kind of points you in the direction and frames Mount Fuji almost. And then as you start to look closer, you notice there's boats underneath the wave that are about to be almost taken over.
There's actually several boats in this image, but the curvature of the boats coincidentally kind of lines up with the waves. So you almost don't notice them the first time you look at this. It kind of takes a second. And there's even people, too, who are rowing on these boats.
Yeah, so these fishermen are about to be taken over by this wave. And so we think Hokusai is really trying to get the viewer to think about the power of nature over man.
It's sort of like a snapshot that, in the middle of like a movie, if you were to just pause it on one particular frame, that's sort of what we're looking at here. And you have to imagine if you were to hit that play button again and this were to continue on, it might not end so well for those fishermen. We kind of don't know, but it's not looking super optimistic.
No, not at all. When you're doing printmaking, you're actually making almost like a stamp that can be reproduced hundreds and thousands almost of times. And so they do think originally Hokusai made anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 prints of this one image, but after he died, there's probably only hundreds left now. Many of you may have seen it on t-shirts, tattoos. This is a very iconic image.
Really cool thing about making a print is that you really have a lot more that you have to think about and consider compared to a painting, right? If you decide that you want to paint that wave blue and then change your mind later and decide that you want it to be red, that's really easy to do with painting. But a print, you have to have every single color and the placement of every single color determined ahead of time, because every single color gets its own hand-carved wooden block. Think of like a stamp, how you have to ink a stamp and then press it down on the paper. You have to make one of those for every single color individually.
So right, in this piece we see a neutral brown, we see white, we see a light blue, a dark blue, a black, kind of the lighter brown of the boat, the darker brown of the boat. That's pretty much it. But there I named half a dozen colors. Those are half a dozen different blocks. So where you see white, there is one stamp with all the shapes you see in white. And then there's another stamps with all the shapes you see in that light baby blue. And he would have to align those every time he made a print. So even though you're thinking, wow, he was able to make 5,000 of these, it still would have been a process, but it could be more commercial this way, and he was able to sell more this way.
And I think that's something that contributes to the popularity of the image, is something that the average person would be more likely to come across in their day-to-day life, as opposed to think of like a giant oil painting of some king that hangs up in their palace that really, unless you're royalty, you don't ever see it.